we got the roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl, and that is between Syracuse out of the ACC. So this is, I believe, the first actual ACC team that's going to be playing in a bowl game. And then USF is going to be representing the American Conference. At this point, by the time this game plays, UTSA will have already played. USF is the second American team to play in a bowl game. So, when you think about Syracuse, Syracuse is kind of a tale of two different teams this year. Syracuse was that team when we saw them at the beginning of the season. There was some people that thought, hey, maybe they should be ranked, starting off 4-0. And then the Clemson game happened. And then North Carolina. And then Florida State. And then Virginia Tech. There was a very back down to earth moment for Syracuse for sure. They're actually very fortunate to be here in a bowl game, considering they won just 2 of their last 8 games. It was so bad, matter of fact, that Syracuse did end up hiring they fired their head coach, Dino Babers. So not sure who's going to be coaching in this bowl game. Looks like a Nunzio Capelli. Honestly, I've never heard of him, but he did end up being the interim coach for the Wake Forest game and found a way to win in that regular season finale. They do have a new head coach, Fran Brown, defensive backs coach out of Georgia, and there's more energy for Syracuse in terms of what they have going on for the offseason versus what they have going on in this bowl game. This bowl game is kind of a Fran Brown gets a chance to look at what kind of roster he's going to inherit here in the upcoming 2024 campaign. A little sneak peek of that. Because there's more off-season energy, not just that there's a new coach in town, and Fran Brown sounds like he might have what it takes. He's at least saying the right things, but time will tell if he actually lives up to expectations or not. They did also get Kyle McCord in the transfer portal too, former starting quarterback out of Ohio State. And you also look at their schedule that they have for the 2024 campaign. I actually ran across this on Twitter yesterday. And I look at the schedule, they have the benefit of avoiding Clemson. They also do not have to deal with Florida State. I look at many of the games, their 2 toughest games is them going on the road against North Carolina State and then a home game against Miami. Other than those 2 games, Syracuse could certainly envision hovering around double-digit wins next year if they get the right pieces around the court. But what about this year's version of the team, though? What does this year's team have to do to become a bowl winner of the Boca Raton Bowl? It's a very simple formula for the Orange. And it's kind of an end-all be-all for the Orange as well. Run the ball well, you'll win this game. If you struggle to run the ball well, you can't get the run game going, you're going to likely get annihilated. Because in the 6 losses that Syracuse had this year, 5 to 6 losses were decided by more than 1 possession. The only exception was the Boston College game when they lost 17-10. So, I say this because Syracuse, when they do run for over 125 yards, they're 6-2. But their 4 losses where their offense couldn't get the ground game moving, Syracuse lost by a combined score of 150-34. Now, a big reason why they have to rely so much on that ground game, because the veteran quarterback that they did have, Garrett Schrader, he's been banged up for much of the second half of the season. But even though he's been banged up in and out for the entire season, he's been able to find ways to get wins, even those wins haven't been pretty, so to speak. But if you can get him going, and then their top running back with Ken Allen going, everything else will fall into place. Because while this isn't an offense that will control the clock, it will dictate the tempo early if it's able to come up with get a few explosive runs. It's not just about bulk yards, it's about the lack of big runs. There are only 4 times this year that Syracuse didn't average 4 yards a carry. And lucky for Syracuse, Syracuse in this particular bowl game does match pretty well against USF because this USF defense is the 3rd worst team in the country when it comes to allowing yards in general. They average more than 450 yards a game. Now, for USF to win this game, USF, I think it's plain and simple at this point. USF needs to stop the run. Now, while many of those 450 yards looks bad, their run defense was actually not that awful. It was inconsistent, but it's not terrible by any means. It was the pass defense that was a big disaster, but Syracuse isn't big on cranking up that air attack at all. While there is a passing game at Syracuse, it's not like it's not existent. They're not Iowa, for Pete's sake. Shortening the offense, putting up 200 in a win against Wake Forest, for example, they're not going to throw dots all over the field. We know what Syracuse is going to do, but we're also going to get a case of how good is this USF team actually is, right? Because yes, USF won 6 games this year. And that's an improvement from what we saw from 2019 to 2022. They've been in a nosedive ever since that 2018 season where USF looked like a team that was on the verge of taking off, but never happened. That being said, USF has the benefit of a somewhat soft schedule, right? USF has won 6 games. One of them is against an FCS squad in Florida A&M. Good FCS team, but still FCS. Of the 5 FBS wins that they were able to accrue this year, only one of those teams is actually going bowling this year. It's the Rice Owls. And so while we acknowledge that, hey, this American Conference may be one of the best Group of 5 conferences in the country, that being said, they could not beat UTSA. They could not beat Memphis. They were also able to get the benefit of avoiding SMU and Tulane as well. They also, like I said, had that FCS win. Like I said, last year team lost to teams like BYU, Florida, Louisville, Cincinnati, Tulane, Houston, SMU. But hey, you know what? You got to 6 wins. So I think this is going to be an interesting test case of a team that may be limited in the pass game versus a team that is decent against the run. But when they've actually played better competition, USF has struggled immensely. Because USF against bowl teams this year, they are an astounding. They have just the 1 win, and they are 1-4 against bowl eligible teams. Let me just make sure I did that right. UTSA, Memphis, Alabama, Western Kentucky. I'm looking at their schedule right now, so I'm just making sure I did my math right. Yeah, so they're 1-4 against bowl eligible teams. Syracuse is a bowl eligible team, and I don't think anyone's surprised that Syracuse did become bowl eligible when they went to that 4-0 start. So I say all this because I do think that Syracuse is going to expose USF here. I'm surprised that the line is as low as it is, but we are going to rock with the Syracuse Orange here. And we are also going to pick them to win outright. So we're going to pick Syracuse to win, and we'll pick Syracuse to, of course, cover that 1.5 point spread, as is stated on Vegas, as that 11 o'clock this morning.